Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday Jam because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. Afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. It seems good now. Right on, Danielle. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I saw the resume. You do have a lot to say, so this is going to be an interesting one. The program will be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How did you get there? And how did you know this was the way to go? So tell us what you do for a living, please.
I am a fantasy author. I am the author of the Birth of the Fae series, soon to come out, Birth of the Succubus, which is volume two of the series, and I'm very excited about it.
It's pretty easy, and as a guy who's been fascinated by mythology for a very long time, I'm originally from Bulgaria, Southern Europe. I've read basically everything I can for about Slavic mythology, Scandinavian mythology, the Greco-Roman period. So it's definitely interesting, interesting thing. And so were you like walking on the street one day and you were like, "Let me be a sci-fi author," or did something lead you to that path?
No, I never thought I would end up here. I actually was a professional martial artist. I was competitive for the U.S. team, the WKA circuit. Then I went into nursing because after you beat them up, you got to patch them up, kind of thing.
Sounds
And from
legit.
there, yeah, it was kind of fun. From there, I actually met a patient who just needed a distraction during IV therapy. And we just started talking. And off the top of my head, I told him a story. And that story is actually the basis for the novels. So it wasn't something I planned on. I am a comic book geek. I won't
Yeah.
deny that. Everybody knows that. I am a comic book geek. So I think somewhere back in my psyche, the foundation was always laid for me to somewhere sometime get into this, but it wasn't something I set out to do. It just naturally unfolded organically. I was actually on the path to becoming a physician assistant. I was in the CASPA circuit. I was applying to schools, all of that, getting ready to go. And I actually got in just as the book was picking up steam and getting ready to go to print. And I had to make that decision between physician assistant school and then pursuing this. So it was the universe kind of saying, okay, what are you going to do now?
That's a pretty fascinating story. I completely understand the comic book stuff because I'm the same. Like, I got my books here to look a little bit more sophisticated on camera, but everything
Yeah.
else is full of comics. I just have to move them elsewhere. Cause got Star Wars and everything here because I'm
Hmm.
just that kind of a guy, especially when because it's cheaper to produce a comic book than at least it's that's the case in Europe. I'm pretty sure it's the same in the US though. Uh,
Yes.
so and it's cheaper and it's much easier to explain a specific lore. Like for example, I'm sure you know about J.R.R. Tolkien. I've
Hmm.
read The Lord of the Rings. I hated it, but I'm all in for sci-fi and everything. But I'm like normally I'm like an indoors guy. So when you tell me that you're going hiking or you're in the mountain or you're in the forest, I can imagine I don't have to read 20 pages to see what a forest is like because I've seen it before. And that's why I really didn't like it. But when it's like this shorter version and everything, it's at least for me, it's way more enjoyable.
I completely agree. Look, I love Tolkien is yes the cornerstone that
Yeah.
most fantasy is built upon. The verbiage, the vernacular. He created the world that, kind of like Asimov and sci-fi and robotics. There are certain forefathers of these genres that we kind of all bow down to and say, okay, yes, Tolkien is that. I get it. But for me, am I going to sit and read a 400-page book where everybody's walking in the forest, and they've got a stick? I
Yeah.
get it. But the thing, even with my books, I originally book one, Locked Out of Heaven, was really like three books in one. And even to me, I was like, it's 400 or 500 pages. And my developmental editor, Clete Barrett Smith, stopped me and he's like, Danielle, I know you love it and that's great, but nobody's sitting here for 400 pages on a new author. And I was like, I agreed. I was split between two ways. I was either going with this big Tolkien-esque thing, or I was going to go Stephen King Green Mile and release these small, tiny, tiny novellas. And he was like, let's meet in the middle. and let's go 200 pages and make them bite size. And that's what we wound up doing. And I enjoyed it so much more. And I kind of joke and say I'm the gateway drug into the fantasy world for people, because it's like I just want them to jump into the world and not feel overwhelmed also by cost, because there's time cost and then there's obviously monetary cost. I don't want somebody to be like, I just invested all this money in this book and now I have to read it. I don't want that feeling, because I also felt that way even in comics. You know, we went through the 90s where it was like this variant cover and this variant cover, and you've got to get the special gold foil for $50. It's like they kind of forgot the audience. So I don't ever want to take my eye off the ball in the sense of who my audience is.
Yeah, same thing is
And remember
applicable
that.
for video games these days. Like the
Yes.
Deluxe Edition, Gold Edition. Should be told it's more frustrating than I guess the creators realize that. So you made the right call here.
I try to keep the audience involved, and even in the sense that I have recently left my publisher, and that was part of, you know, when I was given the choice to stay or go because they were pivoting in their business model. And part of the reason that went into me leaving was because I didn't like the way the prices were going up on the books. I had an issue with it myself. As much as I love my hardcover editions and I think they're great and all that, I wouldn't pay $35 for them
Yeah.
myself. I was like, and every time they told me the price, I'd go, oh, and put my head down. And they were like, what? You're worth it. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if I think I'm worth it. I'm thinking about my customer. And
Yeah.
are they going to pay that? And do I want them to pay that? This is how you end up in a recycle bin. This is how you end up in a donation bin. I want somebody to get that book, love it, and think, okay, I paid X amount of dollars, but it took me on a journey and I love everything about it. I love the paper. I love the limited edition cover in the sense of when you open up the dust jacket, there's another cover inside. Like, I like those little touches, but I don't feel people should be spending $35 to $50 for it. No, I don't. I'd rather put that effort into a good edit, giving you a little touch in the sense of a map or something. And if that means maybe you don't get the limited edition cover, but you get a book you really love at a better price, I'll give you that instead. So I decided to leave so I would have more control over those things, because still at the end of the day, it's about the reader. And these authors who think, I'm letting you read my work, BS. I hate that attitude. It's, I'm giving you the work and you're choosing to read it. I'll bow down. I'm just the tour guide. I'm the custodian of these creatures, these characters. Out of all the books in the world, you picked mine up. I will bow down to you every single time because you have other choices. So I need to make the experience as accessible and as pleasurable as possible.
You have probably one of the most beautiful mindsets possible, and this isn't even a new issue. I don't remember when, I think about 5 years ago, or maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's about 5 years ago. I saw that interview, this actor called, I think Anthony Mackie. He's from the Marvel
Yes.
stuff,
Yep.
the Falcon, and now, you know,
now he's the new Captain America.
Yeah,
yes.
that one. And he was like, so, you know, to go see a movie in the theater and get like four tickets, like 2 adults and 2 children, and get popcorn and something like that. And it's about X amount of money. He was like, I'm not going to pay this to see myself, let alone ask somebody else to see me. This is insane. And like everything is getting more and more expensive in an unnecessary way. And I know because, you know, this podcast aside, I'm actually a financial analyst and an accountant. It's what I've been doing for the last 12 years. So I know I know that this is happening. And I don't think I have to convince anyone that this is happening. You know, people have their own eyes and ears. And
exactly.
But I really want to congratulate you about that mindset because it's amazing. And about the third question, it's how did you know this was the way to go? Now, the reason I'm asking is because I'm sure you've noticed that. It's like that in Europe, but I'm sure I've noticed a lot of places as well. You know, people tend to go to colleges and universities because they have that stigma. You should get a diploma to secure the future. Truth be told, like for decades now, that's not true. And I'm not against diplomas or universities or college. We'll do whatever you want, but you be aware while you're doing it. And I'm noticing that a lot of young people, especially, aren't being aware. They just go with the flow, which is wrong. And you know, it's easy to lie to a young person, right? And it's not an insult or anything. It's just, I think, a very solid observation because once you're young, you don't have a lot of experience, you haven't dealt with a lot of craziness. So young people get easily misled. And it's crazy because it's not even about the money. I know it's like an issue in the US because here
Yes,
in
very
Europe,
much.
it's like 90% of the universities and colleges are like ridiculously cheap. I went to a private college, and while I was there, I was working as a bartender, and I was able to afford everything and even had money on the side. So, and you know, I wasn't like hugely paid bartender, it was a normal job.
Right.
So it's not about the money, it's about the time. Because young people are losing truckload of time, get a diploma that often, not always, but often doesn't mean a lot, let alone none.
Mhm.
And they get out of there with almost no work ethics, loss of time, they don't know what they're doing, and that causes a lot of problems because if you study about something about that's not for you, and then you get to work something that's not for you, you're going to be a miserable person. Now, you can be, I'm not saying it's fine, but I
Mhm.
guess it's kind of acceptable to be miserable on your own. But once you get a wife, a husband, children, well, you're gonna be miserable around them. That's hell. And I know it is because
Mhm.
I've seen it with my own eyes. So
Yes.
I wanted to ask, how did you know that this was the way to go? Because you've been through a few professions already. That, like, for example, you went with martial arts, then you went to a nurse. I guess if you started with a nurse, you would have just beat people up to see what will happen if you punched them over.
Pretty
Who
much.
knows? But the fact that one thing led you to another, and of course, correct me if I'm wrong, but once you started doing the sci-fi writing and everything, you were already an adult. You were shaped
Mhm.
and you were
Yes.
very aware of what's going on. So this was a conscious decision made of
Mhm.
of an adult. So how do, because again, the fact that you can write something means you have imagination. The fact that you've been a nurse, it not everybody can work in a hospital. You have to have this internal care about people. There are exceptions here and there, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about, you know, normal stuff. Because you cannot, you just can't do it if you don't care about people. You went to martial, you said about the martial arts stuff. Well, if you weren't competitive, if you didn't have respect for yourself, because every athlete I've spoken to a lot of athletes, I talked to a lot of them. It's like a common feature, no matter where they're from or gender, national, it doesn't matter. If you're an athlete, you have a respect for yourself because you have to keep to be fit. You
Exactly.
have to do it. You
Mhm.
just can't be a slob or anything.
Right.
So you had respect for yourself. You were disciplined. Otherwise, you can't make it in martial arts or anything. You had care for people. Otherwise, you can't be a nurse or anything. You had the imagination and the will to put your words to paper. So that's how you, but you could have been so many other things, yet you decided to go with this one. Was that a gut feeling? Or what was it?
There's a couple of facets to that. One, my husband is a performance analyst, so I get where you're coming from the analytical side and things like that. But when it came to what I was going to do, I was drawn to medicine from an early age. I always thought I would end up in the medical field at some point. I didn't know how I would get there. I kind of joke I took the long way to grandma's house. As for martial arts, I fell into that. I tend to fall into things, and I think it's because I let my instincts take over and I kind of take the thought out of it sometimes because when I think too hard, that's usually when things go wrong
I've
because I'm
noticed that
putting
following your instincts is a very healthy thing to do because you
it
wouldn't
is.
be having them. An instinct, I guess, is something that we had from for thousands of years of evolution. But
Yes.
you know, once you trust it, trust your instinct. I'm sure you've not every person's been in that situation where you see somebody like often a public figure or something. You see this person and you know this guy is full of it, right? Because
Yeah.
and that's
You
the
know,
intuition, and it's rarely wrong.
exactly. And I think it developed more through martial arts and competing because you have to have a gut instinct when you're fighting or when you're doing forms. You have to know when to turn it on, when to back off, things like that. When I didn't follow my gut and I did exactly what you were saying as a young person, you go to college, you do this, you do that. I ended up at a school that really wasn't for me. I had to make a quick decision because my parents were not involved in, let's go tour colleges, let's get that FAFSA done, let's get the financial aid. I was on my own to quick figure this out. I picked a school, I didn't visit it, and things went completely wrong. And I didn't finish at that school in particular. And I had to like make decisions and do stuff. I think, to be honest, at least in the US, I believe young people are pressured. You come
Yeah.
out of high school, you go to college. There's no self-discovery. Like, what do you really want to do? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, at 17, you're going to decide to be a doctor, you're going to decide to be a lawyer, a journalist, whatever it is. What the heck do you really know what you want to do? It took me a while to figure out. I fell into martial arts. I was very good at competing. I took it to the highest level I could. I got into the Hall of Fame. I got my silver medal. I did the world championships. I did stunt work. I did all that, but it's short lived. The next thing to do in martial arts is either you go to Hollywood or you open up your own school. I didn't want to go to Hollywood. I had done as much. I worked with The Rock. I had done a bunch of stuff, but there's a lot of pressure on that. Or, you know, I was always told you're not commercially attractive. You're attractive, but you're not Hollywood standard. So we need you to lose this much weight. We need you to get boob implants. We need you to do this. And I was like, this is too much pressure. It was killing my self-esteem to where I'd go in with all this. Yeah, but I've got 500 trophies in my back. I've done this, I've done that. And they were like, aren't you sweet? But, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not breaking my back for this, you know. uh did I want to open up a martial arts school? I was kind of like, yeah, I guess, but I wasn't sure if that's really what I want. So I was left with this. Okay, I had done personal training because as an athlete you just fall into personal training.
Yeah.
You've honed your body so much, how could you not? So then there was this, well, maybe I want to do physical therapy, I don't know. And nursing was just there because people, what I noticed, whenever somebody got hurt on the floor, they were like, go talk to Danny. And I'm like, why are you coming to me? But you know, there were situations. I had one when I think I was 17, and my friend blew his hand up with a firework.
Yeah.
And we were all, there was about 20 of us. And he was playing with a firework, going, I'm going to light it. I'm going to light it. Well, he lit it and didn't realize it. He went to throw it away, and he was going on a baseball scholarship. Well, he didn't throw it away quick enough, and it blew up just as it left his hand. And he put his hand to his chest, and he was wearing a white shirt. And when he turned around, the white shirt was red, and everybody ran freaking out. And I remember looking at him going, come here. And I took his ligaments, put it back in his hand, and then stuffed his hand in the ice chest, and took somebody's shirt and wrapped it up. And I said, keep it above your head. Let's get to the hospital. And everybody else was kind of looking at me like, what? And my other friend was driving, and she's crying. And we got him in, and his hand, he was able to keep his baseball scholarship. He was okay. And that was like my first inclination that I can stay calm under pressure. Maybe this medicine thing down the line will work out. So I wound up going into nursing, but still, even in nursing, I was kind of like, there's nothing wrong with nursing, but I can only help so much because I was watching the healthcare system. And I'm like, this thing is broken, especially in the US. I'm like, this thing is majorly broken. I'm
I
very
heard that
limited by
it's
my
not
scope of
exactly
practice.
cheap.
It's not cheap. I saw I saw the making of the sausage, we call it. Like, I saw what went in, and I'm like, I don't like this. I'm limited. So at that point, I wasn't even done with school. And I was like, I know I'm applying. Like, I know I have to be a mid-level provider. I got to get out of this. So I kept thinking this is my way to go. But I was finding creative ways to get to the diagnoses or to get around things. And that's where the creative aspect was kind of going, but I didn't know it. And then I wound up going into more private practice and working with Lyme disease, which is just a crazy disease. And you have to be
Yeah.
very creative in that. And I thought I'll go into research. I was headed that way with the PA. And then I met this patient, and then it just blew up from there. But I had gotten into PA school, and there was a little clause in my contract that said, it was an employment clause. You could not work for the 2.5 years you were in school, or else it was a $30,000 fine, and all your loans went into default. You were thrown out of school. In the US, you cannot transfer medical school credits. It's not like I could be like, oh, I'll just bank them and then I'll go somewhere else. No, it was all dead. And
Wow.
at that point, I had an offer on the table from a publishing company and I was considering taking it. But the book wouldn't come out until until I maybe had a year, 40, like half a year, a little more than that left in the PA program. So I called the gentleman who I remembered who was the head of the program admissions, and I was explaining who I was. And he goes, "Oh, I remember you." He's like bright red hair, and he was kind of joking with me. I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "All right, here's the deal." He said, "Has it ever happened that we've thrown somebody out?" He's like, "For something like this, no. But," he said, "if I get a doctor who's always wanted to be an author, and that's been their lifelong dream, and they put it aside because they got their call for medicine," he said, "and they bring it to me, I'm going to have to throw you out." He's like, "Because you will be in violation." I said, "Even if the book comes out," he goes, "you're going to have to edit at some point." He's like, "During school, you'll have to edit." He goes, "You're going to have to do some publicity, something. You'll have to do something for this book." And I went, "Yeah." He's like, "It's a legal contract. They're going to call all this into, consideration." He's like, "You'll be in violation." And I went, "Okay." He goes, "Let me give you some hints." I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Go bet on red, honey." And I went, "Okay." He goes, "You don't want to be in medicine right now." And he's like, "I remember who you are." He said, "The reason I remember you is because," he said, "you had developed a helmet for the NFL to help with figuring out head injuries and how to detect them." He goes, "That's not PA thinking." He goes, "That's creative thinking. Go write your book, baby." And
Nice.
he's like totally off the record. And he goes, "Goodbye," and hung up. And I was like, he didn't even give me a chance to answer, nothing. And I was like, and I stood there going, and then there was this moment of PA school after I get out, it pays X amount of dollars. I'm going to be left with $200,000 in debt, though. That's how much it costs to go. I couldn't write it off because there was new tax laws that had just changed in the US. And I really sat there going, I'm going to go write books about fairies. Like it was really this moment of, I just paid all this money in prereqs. I was really struggling. And I'm like, this is not the logical thing to do. Like there's no, besides the authors you hear about, like you hear about George R.R. Martin, you hear about J.K. Rowling, like you hear about the ones that are making millions of dollars and sitting on their house and they're like, life is
Yeah,
so
that's
easy. It was
like
so easy
about
to write these
5%
books.
of all the authors.
It's even less than that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but then you hear about the authors. There are a group of them that are not on talk shows that are doing very well on Amazon, who are doing ebooks, and they're like, "Hey, look, I got my little house. It's paid off and I'm very happy and I've got a legion of fans, but no, I'm not on this show and that show, but I'm doing fine." So I was like, if I do this right, I could be happy writing my books and somebody will pick up that book one day and maybe it
Yeah.
won't be 20 million, but it'll be a couple and I'll go, "This is my favorite book. Love this book." And it'll be mine. And I was like,
Your
that's
first
all I
book
can hope for.
is already in Amazon, right? Amazon, eBay,
I
Etsy.
have I have 6 books out.
Okay.
And then Locked Out of Heaven is still out. I've pulled the rest because I'll be redoing them. But my eighth novella comes out June, which is totally mine under my imprint, and I'm really thrilled about it because I had complete control, and I can't wait. And then Birth of
Yeah.
a Succubus, which is volume 2, will be totally under my control, and that will come out in 2025. And I have an amazing comic book writer, Stephanie Williams from DC and Marvel. She wrote Nubia, she wrote Wakanda. She has actually agreed to write my forward, which brings me to tears because she's so amazing. I can't even tell you. She actually read Locked Out of Heaven, and we have met on the circuit. And I asked her, and she was like, "It would be," she's like, to write for another female creator. She's like, "I would love to do it." And she was that generous, and it humbled me. And so she is actually writing the forward to Birth of a Succubus, A Fool's Journey. And I could never have gotten that staying with a traditional publisher because they have certain rules. So just to be able to walk
Yeah.
up to another creative that I adore and really look up to and say, "Hey, would you do this?" And she was like, "High five, no problem."
That's amazing. Not to mention, today's technology allows a lot of things. Like you can literally get the Unreal Engine for free. And I'm not advertising anything. I'm just
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
an idea or something. But you can just download an Unreal Engine 5, I think it's now, but I'm not sure. I'll check out. Uh, and like make a short movie literally for free because all the models are there. You can put it on the mountain. I know what a succubus is, but I don't know what your novel is about. But yeah, you actually have those novels. You actually have those models and figures over there. So that's the first thing that popped out of my mind. So yeah, I think it will take you like about a month to do like a 10-minute video. But truth be told, it's worth it. And by a month, I mean like a couple of hours daily here and there. So you already have the imagination, and all the models and the maps are over there. It's free. And you once you
Mhm.
upload it in YouTube or elsewhere,
Mhm.
uh, it's like pretty good publicity.
Yeah,
So
I've had some people inquire already. Actually, we've done a script for an anime based on the
nice.
first book, and it was entered into the Dallas International Film Festival screenwriting, and they
Ooh.
drew the first scene. And then they liked their work. Everybody got it, but they liked it so much they called me and they were like, "Can we use it in an ad?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, go have a great time." And they time lapse drew it, and it was awesome. And so we've had interest. We're currently looking at doing a graphic novel. We have a great editor, Akira. We're talking to Mike Lilly from DC Comics to draw it. So we've had great, awesome things happen. Everybody wants to get to that level, obviously, where they are a household name, or when you say fantasy, they're like, oh yeah, here are the 5 authors I think of, and of course, you want your name in there.
Yeah.
And I think eventually we'll get there. It's gonna, like I said, I tend to take the long way to grandma's house,
Yeah,
but
it's a step by step.
do I feel this is finally where I'm supposed to be? Yeah, I do now. It took me a little while to feel comfortable here, but now that I have more control, I definitely feel like, okay, yeah, this is kind of what I'm supposed to be doing, because my creative side can come out. And I've spoken to other creatives that get it. When you're writing, it's really isolated. It's not like you walk down the hall, hit a cubicle, and go, so this is what I'm thinking, and there's somebody there go, yeah, yeah. You don't have that as a writer. So you're so isolated that I've had a chance to talk to different creatives in different mediums. And you realize, oh, okay, you go through the same thing, or you do it this way. And you're realizing, like, this kind of is my kin. Like, I fit in here,
Yeah,
because
your
for a while
colleagues,
I didn't know.
technically. That, yeah. And I have a fourth question, and you'd be
Mhm.
amazing to answer it because I know you definitely have a lot to say about this. If you can give one advice to those people that are right now in that situation, in college or about to be in college or just graduated, and they're looking for what they're supposed to be doing, what will that advice be?
You need to listen to, you got to get rid of the noise. You have to get rid of the expectations of you, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas,
Yeah.
because at a certain age, it's all on you. And it's like, whether you're 18 going in, 21 coming out, whatever it is, unfortunately, there are certain milestones ahead of you that are put on you by society. Like, okay, you're supposed to graduate. Now you're going to go get a crappy job somewhere where somebody's going to treat you really bad, but that's okay because that's the learning curve. And they kind of waggle their finger at you like, you're supposed to do this. It's supposed to be an internship and they're going to pay you really badly. But this is you putting your dues in. And then you're going to meet so and so. And then you're going to go here and here. And you got to be married by the time you're 28 or whatever it is. You have to get rid of the noise. It has to go away. You kind of have to go back to what made you happy as a kid, as weird as that sounds, because when you were a kid, whether it was playing in the sandbox, whether it was singing on a stage, whatever that was, even if you were building Legos, that tells you if you were happy doing that, maybe engineering is calling you. Maybe there's something in there. It's kind of like, I think you have to kind of go backwards to find your zhuzh and see where that passion is. Now, I'm not saying everything creative, if you're somebody who loves numbers, okay, then you love numbers. You Great. That's where you kind of have to go. But what everybody gets caught up in during that time is they look back at their parents and they're
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be like that. And whether it's, I don't want to scrap for money. I don't want to be unhappy, whatever it is. And they figure, what's the opposite? Okay, so dad did this. Well, I don't want to do that. And they go the extreme. The best thing you can do, go to therapy. I know, people don't like that. Go to therapy, because unless you know yourself, how can you pick what you're going to do for the rest of your life? You don't even know you. Why do you
Uh,
want to pick something?
I couldn't
It's
agree more. And people really, it's very important for a person to know himself or herself. And you're right about that. There's no such thing. Maybe there was once a blueprint for life. That
it's
was a
not
long
anymore.
time ago. Because, let's say you and I were born 300 years ago. I'm pretty sure I would have been working what my father was working. You didn't have a lot of chances.
Yes,
But the world is different now. Every generation, ever since the Industrial Revolution, is just different. It's how it is. They're not, there are no bad feelings when they give you that blueprint, but it's a blueprint that doesn't work. So
it
I,
was
I
limiting.
honestly couldn't agree more with you. You're absolutely right about that.
It's limiting. And I think, and this probably speaks more to marginalized, like women and things like that. Look, social media is great for certain things. I use it to promote my books and to
Obviously.
promote what I do. This is what we need to do. But do not compare your life to social media. Do not think
Yeah.
that is the pinnacle of life, because I'll tell you right now, it's very easy. And I know authors who do this. And I'm going to give you an author example. I know authors who go into Barnes and Noble, and what they do is they take their books. Books are not carried there. And they go, or maybe it's in one store. And they sit there and go, oh, at Barnes and Noble with my books. And they take a picture. They go to the car. They stay at that same Barnes and Noble. They change. They come back in. They go to a separate section and go, sold out at Barnes and Noble, this one. And they keep doing this at the same place to make it look like they are in all these Barnes and Nobles, or the book was sold out and there's all these people clamoring for them. And then you find out all they did was take 3 hours at the same place, change their clothes a couple times, and they look like they're this huge success. And I got caught up into it because I watched an author do this. I kept going, how are they doing this? Why are they in? We tried to get in there. We couldn't get in. And then I found out. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's the
okay,
same with stocks actually.
that's
I don't know if you have that yogurt brand in the
mm-hmm.
US. It's French, called Danone.
No. Well,
Okay,
they
but you
might.
have this huge, huge chain called Walmart, right?
Oh, yes. Yep.
All right, so here's what happened. Danone paid a lot of money to Walmart to keep their yogurt, not to sell it,
Oh, yeah.
to
Okay.
keep it.
Yes.
All
Yep.
right, what do we have in the newspaper? Danone finally in Walmart, right? That's a huge deal because it's a pretty
Mm-hmm.
known brand in the US,
Yes.
and people start investing in their stocks. And technically and legally, that's not a lie. The Non's products are in Walmart stores. That's what it says,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
They're not making any money of it. Not only they're not, they lost money because they paid Walmart. But
But
yeah, you're right about that. Just because you see, don't believe anything you hear and believe half of what you see. And life will be way easier.
I agree. That's why I think social media is great for certain things, but younger people, especially I'm not on TikTok. I can't be on TikTok because of my
Yeah,
husband's job.
same.
We can't,
No.
we can't do it. And I know book talk's a big thing. And for an author, am I missing out? I'm probably missing out on something. But at the same time, I see girls who are like, oh, I want a thigh gap again. I want leggings legs and all this stuff. And I'm like, girls, I grew up during the Ally McBeal era where it was
Yeah.
anorexia. And as somebody who was going through that Hollywood, where they wanted me for stunt work, and it was like, could you lose 10 more pounds? And I'm like, I am 113. What more do you want out of my life? There's just certain things with social media that if you're trying to figure out your life, do not look to social media. That's, you don't want to be a Kardashian. Look, I get it. They got $1 billion and whatever, but just remember they came from money to begin with. So the ones that are like, I'm
Yeah.
working my butt off. Oh my God. They came from money. They had a name. It's not like that. There's very few self-made people on social media right now. And the ones who are like, I don't buy followers, they all bought followers to get to
Yeah.
that million to start. They all did. They'll tell you don't do that and all that stuff. They all started that way and then built from there.
Yeah.
If you're trying to figure yourself out, you got to cut the noise and go from there and then get to know yourself. It took me a long time to get here, and I probably fought upstream the entire time because I tried to do the logical thing. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to do this. Okay. I'm going to, I'm going to figure it all out. And when I finally just went with my instincts, this is where I am. Do I have a vet in the garage just yet? No, but I'll get there. I guarantee I'll get there. I love the comic book community. I will have a graphic novel. I will have an action figure. I will have all the things that as a kid I collected and made me happy, because I'm finally in the community that always brought me joy and had me feel safe. Instead of trying to put a square peg in a round hole, which is what I did for a long time. Now I go to GalaxyCon, I go to the conventions where I was always with my tribe. That's where I was always safe as a cosplayer. And now I'm there as a guest.
That's truly amazing, and you truly are a textbook example for this. So I knew it was going to be amazing. And again, please don't forget to send me all of the links.
You got
everything. It will be in the description below. And then it was an absolute honor to have you here with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who listens.
Likewise. Bye.
Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.